Good day, fellow DIYers. Today we have here a 2000 Honda Prelude H22A4 USDM 5-speed manual transmission, and today we're replacing the clutch. So hopefully, if you're doing the same task, this video will be able to help you on walking through taking out the components on top, both of the axle, the actual transmission itself, and actually replacing the clutch. So let's get to it. First thing that you want to remove is your intake tube. So you have a hose that connects your intake tube and your valve cover. You want to pull that off like that, and use a flathead screwdriver to loosen up the clamp from the throttle body towards this intake tube connector. $10mm to take out the battery terminals. Next is to remove the battery tray, and this will be a 12mm. So once this one is free to move, you want to detach your coolant reservoir. And then the next thing that we're gonna be removing is this bracket, this guy right here. Before you remove the starter, you want to remove all the wirings that are attached to it. So there's one on top that you just want to wiggle and pull out. There you go. And then the second one at the bottom that connects to the battery positive. Now it's time for us to take out the starter. So you have a 17mm at the bottom and a 14mm on top. Okay, once both of the bolts are already out, you want to just gently pull your starter off. There we go. And what I normally do is I leave the bolt where it mounts, so I know where to get them later. After taking the starter off, next thing that we're gonna be removing is the banjo bolt. That banjo bolt that supplies the fluid towards our clutch line. And we also have undo both cotter pins on the end and unclip them here from this mounting bracket. We will be replacing this crush washer and then the crush washer at the bottom when we're ready to install everything back in. So this is the first cotter pin. there will be a second one here. It's really hard to get a camera angle. I think I can take it out with my fingers. Then after taking out both of the shift cable, you also want to take off the speed sensor at the back. It is right where the light is shining, that sensor. So you want to push this tab and then wiggle gently and then pull out, and that will be the connector for that speed sensor. And then the next one that we're taking out is these two connectors for the reverse light. So you have a green and a yellow wire that you need to take off like that. And I think so far we're done on top for now. After removing most of the component on the transmission side here at the top of the engine bay, the next thing that we want to do is to lift up the car. So we're gonna lift it up in front and put them on jack stands and remove the tires. So you want to put your jack in front of this cross member to lift it up, and the jack stands goes on this side right here. You have one on each side. That's where you want to place your jack stands. Next thing that we're going to be doing is removing both tires. After removing both tires, now it's time to drain our transmission fluid. The drain plug, we'll be taking it out with just the ratchet. Once we're ready to fill this one up, we'll be replacing the crush washer in this guy too. After draining the transmission fluid, the next step that we're going to be doing is to remove this 36mm axle nut, the upper bolt joint, and the tie rod end. And sometimes if this one is really tight and you're gonna take it out, the best way to do is to add WD-40 to soften it up, to soften up the rust, or PB Blaster before you actually do this task. Then after you take this one off, yep, that's what's remained of it. Now after you remove the cotter pin, now it's time to loosen up this 17mm. Whack this side so it would separate. Yep, just like that. And the next thing that we're gonna be removing is this tie rod end. This one is a 19mm. Once that's off, tap the lower portion of it so it will bunch somehow. Okay, now you want to remove 2 bolts that hold this brake line, and 2 bolts on top. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are 10mm. So it hangs like that, and that's safe for the lines, for your brake line and your ABS line. Okay, and now we're going to pop that axle. Now you want to use a pry bar or a small screwdriver to touch it on this space and pry it out. There you go. So once this one is loose, we want to push this one out a little bit so this one can fall down and be pulled towards that side. Once that one is loose, and now you can pull off this axle out. So you take it out, put down, push towards the transmission inward and going out from this side. There's your axle. Once the passenger side axle is off, you want to put this one back, this nut back, so it will hold it in place for now. And the next thing that we're gonna be removing would be this crossbar. You have 2 bolts on this side, those 2 bolts, and a nut towards the end, and that will give you enough clearance when you pull down the transmission. Okay, after removing the bar, you have 2 17mm bolt and another 17mm nut on that side, and this one goes on like this to that part. Remove is this cross member. So you have 1, 2, 3 14mm bolt, and you also have 14mm bolts that hold on top on this side. Another thing that you want to remove would be this rubber support for the exhaust. And we are just using a small pry tool to push this one off. And then you can just simply turn this one to its side. And now we just have to remove those 2 bolts. After you take out those two bolts, you go on front and you want to take out this 1, 2, 3. We are now moving to the driver's side. What we have to do is to take off this upper ball joint, the tie rod end, and the axle nut. Then after that we have a couple of bolts to be taken off from the axle side. Once this side is all loose, yep, including the ABS and the brake line, so it won't be pulled off too much, you want to push the axle towards that side. And then now we're about to remove the bolts that holds the axle. So this is the continuation of the axle, and you have 3 bolts, so you have 1 right here, so that's 1, and then you have 2 more on top, so you have this one and this one. So we'll start by removing the one at the bottom. So it's gonna be that one. So that will be the second one. And the third one will be where the tip of the socket wrench goes. So it will be that one. And that will be the third one. Man, this axle is really in bad shape. I'm gonna replace this one too. And then once you undo those 3 bolts, you want to grab our trusty pry bar, a small pry tool. And then you just want to go inward like that, and start prying out the ones that's off. The only thing that we need to do is go back out and maneuver most of this component towards the side so we can pull the rest of the axle. At this point, we're now ready to pull the axle out. And the axle came out in 2 pieces. That's how bad it is. And like what we did on the other side, we want to return the upper ball joint. The reason behind this one is in order for the upper ball joint to still hold the entire assembly like this. And this is the half of our axle, and these are both of our axle. This is the passenger side axle, and then this is the driver side. As you can see, the axle is already bad shape too, so I'm gonna replace that as well. And these are the 3 bolts that I was showing earlier. So this one is the very bottom, so you have that bolt with the sleeve on the bottom, and then the longest between the two of them would be on the right hand side if you're looking up towards the car, and then the shorter one would be on the left hand side. And then after removing both of the axles, we're now ready to remove all the transmission bolts.